Hello and welcome back to the HCCTV Student Lounge. This is a show done by HCC students for HCC students to give your opinions in news, entertainment, and what's going on in school. Hi Carolina, how are you? Excited about spring?
Yes, it's my favorite part of the year. Hello, Kyle. We're also joined today by Francisco, Josh, Eric, Chaz, and Andres. And we will also be joined by Paul Southerlan, who is here to talk about Easter and the meaning behind it for Christians. But first, let's move into our top three news or events of the week. So during Holy Week, Christians recall the events leading up to Jesus' death by crucifixion and, according to their faith, his resurrection. The week includes the 5 days of special significance, like Good Friday, commemorates Jesus' suffering and death on the cross, and it is traditionally a day of sorrow, penance, and fasting. Now, in the U.S., we learn to commemorate Easter in with different activities, and one of them is egg hunting, right? So the Woodlands Children Museum is hosting egg activities and on Saturday, April 3rd this year from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it's gonna cost like six bucks, and you can bring the camera to snap a picture with the Easter bunny and enjoy 2 days of Easter themed arts and crafts at the Woodlands Children's Museum. So if you have any family member that you want to take Kyle, just go ahead and about these activities. Now, the HCC is hosting a relax and release yoga, and it's hosted especially by the HCC Smoke Free. It's on April 8th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to have the link over here. And there are some studies that have shown that yoga reduces stress and negative effects that lead to smoking. So you can join the environmental enhancement and wellness community for a free yoga class, and you can reduce the stress, help you avoid smoking. So even if you don't smoke, Kaya, if you're stressed out, I recommend you that you go over there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. My head is pretty much smoking right now, but that's all. So I need to like throw a little water in it, and I think yoga can help with that, or some meditation too.
Yes, yes. I recall your video from meditation. I always go back to it. Now, today's April Fool's Day. So April Fool Day pranks in modern times, people have gone to great lengths to create elaborate April Fool's Day hoaxes. And just like newspapers, radio, and TV stations and websites, they have participated in this day as a tradition, reporting outrageous fictional claims that have fooled their audiences. And I just googled this one is in 1996, the Taco Bell, the fast food restaurant chain, do people when it announced it had agreed to purchase Philadelphia's Liberty Bell, and instead of renaming, they wanted to rename it Taco Liberty Bell. There's also another one in 1998 after Burger King advertised a left-handed Whopper. And this was specially designed for the 32 million left-handed Americans. And people did actually ask for that fake sandwich. So it's just so weird. Google notoriously hosts an annual April Fool's Day prank also that includes everything from telepathic search to the ability to play Pac-Man on Google Maps. Crazy. Now, let's begin our first topic, which makes way to a great discussion. So, the current season of Easter, Passover, and spring. So, like I just mentioned, we're in Holy Week, and this Holy Week is usually from the dates of it starts on Sunday, March 28th until Saturday, April 3rd. And the Easter is on Sunday, April 4th. But let's hear from our team what topics that they want to discuss, like Easter eggs and so many other things.
So I would like to start by sharing what we do in Brazil. So since I was a kid, we never really have egg hunting like they do here with the little eggs and things like that. But in Brazil, we have those really big chocolate eggs that usually have surprise inside of it, or they even have more chocolate. So I always love those, especially when I was a kid. I liked the ones with the little tie. And my favorite egg was actually the Kinder egg, which I don't think they're allowed to sell here because they have a little surprise inside. But in Brazil, we have the big ones, and they usually have some really cool like toys, like a little car or something inside. So, and the chocolates is amazing too. So that was definitely my favorite egg to get on Easter. But one thing that we used to do was more like a scavenger egg hunt, which my parents or my family, they used to hide little clues around the house, and we need to put those clues together to try to figure out where the eggs were hidden, the big eggs. And it was usually one egg for each kid, a big one, but just one. It's not like here that it's like hundreds of little eggs. We don't do that way. But it was a lot of fun, and it's just a tradition that we do in Brazil. And I wish I was there actually, to spend some time with my brother, for example, and just have fun. But it is what it is.
When I was a young kid going to elementary school or even daycare, they had us do these called Easter egg hunts, kind of similar to what you were talking about, where they would have kids engaged in fun activities to basically go looking for eggs all over the playground. And in the eggs would be, like you said, candy or little prizes or little toys. And it was good for kids to kind of get out and be active and everything. So it was very active for kids to play. I do recommend it if you have a lot of kids or run your own daycare, but it's a good way for kids to kind of acknowledge the fun of Easter. So again, it's called the Easter egg hunt. I did it whenever I was a little kid, about 10 or 11 years old, or even 8 years old, but it's pretty fun.
Speaking of Easter eggs and Easter traditions, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the origins of these weird, a rabbit, a Easter bunny going around and laying eggs or whatever. So the origin of that tradition is actually, like most origins of of these things that we've seen, comes from Germany. And so the Germans, they had this Easter, they called it Oster something. It was like Oster. It meant basically egg laying hare or rabbit, and so the rabbit would go around giving kids like Easter eggs and painted colored eggs, and they would make little like wreaths or nests for the eggs to be put in, and then they would also leave out carrots and stuff, kind of like we do with Santa Claus. I guess a lot of the traditions are the same. Um, and then in the 13th century, just generally, the Catholic Church, they kind of had, so they have their season of Lent at this time, and there's some things that people are asked to abstain from eating. And so back then, one of the things was eggs, actually. So since they had, eggs anyways, they wouldn't eat them, but they would like paint them and decorate them, and then they would eat them when Easter came. So that's also could be part of where that tradition comes. Also, eggs and rabbits are they're both symbols of fertility, so I think they just kind of associate those two things together.
That was really interesting, Francisco. Now I'm going to turn it around a little bit, and we're going to talk about something a little different. So instead of just Easter, spring. It's a season of rebirth. It's a season of renewal, and it's the perfect time to start a garden. Now I live in a small one-bedroom apartment, so I don't have very much room for it. But if you have the room, right now is the perfect season to start with some green beans, some green onions, or even some root vegetables like carrots and turnips. You can make some delicious soup, or at least just have some garnish for stuff you're doing if you want to start real small.
I want to talk about Passover, which some people might just know as like, oh, it's the Jewish Easter. The Passover, known as Pesach in Hebrew, it's a celebration of the Israelites being freed from slavery in Egypt. Some of you might be familiar with the deadly plagues, and the 10th and most deadly was the killing of the firstborn by the angel of death. And to avoid this, Israelites marked their front doors with lamb's blood so the angel would pass over them. See? Now, why does Passover not take place on the same time every year like Easter does? That has to do with how the Jewish calendar, which is based on the lunar calendar, as opposed to how our standard Gregorian calendar works. Passover specifically happens on the 15th of the month of Nisan, which is actually the 7th month of the Jewish calendar. And funny enough, it's because there's 12.4 like moon cycles a year, the Jewish calendar will add a 13-month every couple of years just to keep Passover in the spring and keep it aligned with the Gregorian calendar.
I want to talk about Colombia, my country. So we celebrate all the week, not just one day, all the week. It's called Semana Santa or Holy Week. Is one of the most important celebrations in Colombia. Also, a lot of people take this week to go to vacations. About the Holy Week, the Holy Week starts on Sunday, the Palm Sunday. That is the day to commemorate the Jesus when he go inside to the Jerusalem. we have the Monday and the Holy Monday and Holy Tuesday. After that, we have the Holy Wednesday, that is the end of the Lent. We have the Holy Thursday, that is the commemorate for the Last Supper or the last dinner that Jesus had with the apostles. We have the Good Friday, of course, and the Easter on Sunday. Something important about that celebration in my country is, in the big cities, the people usually go to the church. Some people go in one day, they go to different church, like 7 different church in one day in the big cities. But in the small cities, the people, they make processions, like parades. So we have two cities very important about the Holy Week, that is Popayan and Mompox. In those cities, they make different parades, and the procession, in the procession, they celebrate the passion and death of the Christ, and the people dress, and they make as a representation about the day that Jesus died. And some people they just they felt they want to feel they want to they make the representation about what Jesus felt the day that he died. So that's why they make the dress, and they make different processions in the different streets. It's very interesting to see that processions.
That's something that I just learned, Andres. I'm also from Colombia, and all I know is with my family, we go to the church, and what you said, the procession, we go to the different stations, and I don't know how to call it. I call it stations, and we read about what happened, and like Jesus is falling and all of that until the very last one. So that's very interesting to know. I have to go to that place. Now now that we have heard from our crew, let's move to the week's guest. So why don't you introduce us to him, Caio?
With pleasure. So today we have Reverend Paul Southerlan. He's a former pastor and now chaplain at Faith Community Hospice. How are you today?
Hey, thank you guys for having me. You guys are, I kind of feel like I'm on the inside here. You guys got quite a great team going on.
Thank you very much. So since we have you here, I would like to start with this question. Can you please tell me what's the meaning behind Easter and Good Friday?
I'm not exactly a youngster anymore. I've been a pastor for 28 years, been a chaplain for 9. So I asked a 17-year-old that I'm good friends with. I asked her 2 days ago, and she is someone that's non-churched. And just out of curiosity, I was having a cup of coffee with her, and I said, I have a question for you. She said, sure. And I said, what is Easter? And she said, well, I haven't gone to church much. And I said, I know, but what is Easter? And she kind of clammed up a little bit because it kind of made her a little bit nervous. And she said, well, I think it has something to do with Jesus and him coming back. Well, okay. I don't know how, that made me chuckle a little bit. I'm glad that she knew that Easter had something to do with Jesus. But I wanted to kind of set the context of this, because I realized that you guys have one thing in common, and that is the educational process. This is an HCC program, and the whole basis of it is the educational system. I want you guys, let me give you context of Easter, because things have changed a little bit since even I was younger. There's a verse in the New Testament in the book of Luke, and it summarizes the life of Christ, and it's kind of interesting. It says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So if you examine that, it says that Jesus grew mentally and physically and spiritually and socially. Now, that's probably not a big surprise to you guys, but I want you guys to think, because of your link to an educational system, I want you guys to think about school in the 21st century. Nearly everything that is important we learn about in school. I mean, there used to be a time when school was about, people would say, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I mean, now, you know, when people go to school, it's not only arithmetic and algebra. I mean, you learn home economics, and you learn different skills, cooking skills, and you learn PE skills and health class and all of that stuff. And the message that comes across is, if it's important, we talk about it in school. Do you guys get that? That's, you know, school kind of covers the important stuff. Well, the interesting thing about it is, what's the one thing that we don't talk about in school? And for the most part, that's religion. Very, very seldom. Well, I mean, unless you take a specific class, you don't hear a lot of talk about religion in school. And I think one thing that you guys need to understand is that, you know, not everything that's really important is something that gets covered in school. I mean, some things like religion and faith, and those are very important things. Those are things that'll change, that can and do change a person's life. You know, the religious life right now, it doesn't have the impact that it once did. But I want you guys to know that in the year 1957, there was a guy named Billy Graham in this country, and he went to New York City. This was 1957, and he filled Madison Square Garden, and the topic was religion. He filled Madison Square Garden for 4 months in a row, every night. The bottom line is that I don't think religion has changed that much. I think our country has changed that much. And so when I ask a 17-year-old gal 2 days ago, what is Easter? You know, she might not know that much about it. And it's not so much that religion has changed. It's that mankind has changed, and some of our thoughts and priorities and that kind of thing, that has changed. Now, let's get around to the answer to the question. When you talk about Good Friday, the whole idea about Good Friday is that that's the day that the Roman Praetorian Guards crucified Jesus. And then Easter is the day, 3 days later, that Jesus arose.
That's a great answer. I like how you went back in history to talk about. So with that in mind, and you kind of mentioned that already, but I wanted you to revisit as where you say. So how has our society changed in the participation in the Easter tradition? I know you kind of mentioned that, but I wanted to hear more about this.
Oh, okay. That's a fantastic question. You know how we as individuals, sometimes even though you get a little bit smarter in certain things, there are important things that you avoid anyway. You know, here's the thing. Mankind's been around for several thousand years. One of the things that we are learning to avoid right now is a very small word. As soon as I say the word, you'll know what it is, but you'll hardly ever hear the word outside of a church. And that is this little word, sin. Eek. You even hate to say it, don't you? Because it's just this yucky thing. And it reminds us that people are not infallible. As a matter of fact, you know, mankind wasn't on the earth very long before God looked down and he said, hey, you guys got some real problems. I think you need some guidelines. And so he gave us a little document called the 10 Commandments. But the bottom line is we need to look at ourselves and be a little bit more critical of ourselves, saying to ourselves, you know, I got a problem. we all heard about the guy that you know, the guy that has a problem with drug control and stuff like that, and so he wrecks his fourth Lamborghini on the way to rehab. You know, he just can't quite admit that he's got a problem. It's obvious to everybody else, but it's not to him, and that's kind of the way we all are.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for this answer. And now I wanted to, this question just came to my head. So I think that there's also this religious meaning to Easter, but I think it can also be something good personally. You know, for example, for me and for a lot of people, it's a moment to be with your family. And also I think it's a moment where you kind of, it's kind of like Christmas, you know, it's a moment where you kind of forget the problems and you're just there with your family having a nice meal. So I think there's also this behind Easter, right? What do you think?
Well, I think that's healthy. I don't think you want it to be just a revisit of New Year's resolutions. As a matter of fact, you know, you can do a lot of good things. So what you were talking about was a good social thing that you could do for building relationships and stuff like that. But Easter, I find to be most profitable when it restores and enhances the relationship between myself and my maker. We today are very, 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 a very social people, and you guys have grown up in this whole social revolution type of thing. And, you know, I kind of marvel about how social some people want to be. I don't have a problem with the sociability unless it takes away from our own self-improvement. And you know what? Sometimes you don't need, in order to increase your discipline or your character, you don't need to talk with other people about this. Sometimes it's just a matter of you need to learn how to be at peace with yourself.
That was a great answer. So we start to run out of time, but I would like to ask if there's anything else that you would like to add for this interview before we move on to the next segment.
I view Easter as what I call the Great Exchange. By that, I mean, I give Jesus all of my sin, all of my doubts, all of my failures, all of my guilt, all of my shame. I give him all of that, and he gives me all of his correct and proper standing with God the Father. That's what I call the Great Exchange.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I think we learned a lot today, and we hope to have you again. Let's see what topics can we discuss, because I think we learned a lot. So now we're going to move on to the next topic. What's going on, Carolina?
Well, yeah, that was fascinating to hear about. And I totally agree with the fact that it's a time to like revisit all the saints. And it's just a way of you give that to your maker, which is God. And then there's also a lot of things on traditions like abstinence, and you just kind of don't do those things for those days because you are trying to I don't know how to explain it, like to give something back to him. So yeah, that was fascinating to hear about. And also, as you know, we also cover things that are entertaining. So what shows are out that you want to talk to us about, guys?
All right, where I don't have a show, but I have a movie. It's a bit older. It's called Jesus Christ Superstar. It's based on the musicals by the same name by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And honestly, if you're a fan of musicals, it is such a delight to watch. Carl Anderson as Judas, knocks it out of the park every time. Like, his voice is just amazing. And I think it really brings home an interesting message about, you know, what if Jesus had come today instead of when he in the past? Well, I guess today was the 1970s for them. But, you know, it's always a thought.
Thanks, Chaz. So I would like to share really, it's a religious movie, but it's actually like a comedy. So I know some people get like, religions and comedy, sometimes they don't, go well together. But I think this movie has a really good message. And that's, for example, it's with Jim Carrey, and his name on the movie is Bruce Nolan. He's a reporter, which he starts complaining about God. And he says that God is not doing his job well. So he ends up like, getting real upset and saying that he's not doing the job. So God, which is done by Morgan Freeman, decides to give him the job to be a god for a week. And it's really funny because now he has so much power, he can do pretty much anything he wants. But then he started receiving like 1 million prayers for a day, and he started like freaking out because he doesn't know how to help so many people. And then he realized that being God is not easy. So I think it's a really good movie. If you haven't watched, it's from 2003, but it's still a really, really good movie. And it's, again, it's with Jim Carrey, Morgan Freeman, and Jennifer Aniston. So you should definitely check that out.
So I want to recommend a movie called Noah. It came out in 2014. It's a very supernatural, edgy kind of take on the Noah story, very modern day take. It's from the director of Black Swan, has great visual effects. It's rated PG-13, but the story is very good in my opinion. I went into it with very low expectations, but I was very impressed with the whole supernatural concept that they put into the movie. So I would definitely recommend it to people who are very into religion and very into like supernatural type things like me. So again, it's called Noah. It came out in 2014. It stars Russell Crowe and Anthony Hopkins.
Today I want to recommend Ben-Hur. It's one of the most successful movies in the history. That movie won 11 Oscars. It's from 1959. It's the story about Judah Ben-Hur, who lived with his family in Jerusalem in the same time that Jesus was there. When the Roman governor, he arrives to the city, the Ben-Hur's sister she drops an object and hit the governor. That's why the family is accused to try to kill the Roman governor. And actually Ben-Hur, he's sent to the desert to make like forced labor. When Ben-Hur is in the desert, he met Jesus, and Jesus give him faith about the life. So this is a very interesting movie, very good production, very good plot. It's starring by Charlton Heston, that he is one of the very important actors in the 50s.
Thank you, Andres. That movie came out at a time with another movie that I won't be talking about today, but 10 Commandments, also Charlton Heston, also good. But I'd like to talk about The Passion of the Christ, which is, as it's done, what it sounds like. It's based on the Passion, which is basically the ordeal that Christ went into in his last couple of days. And I mean, not to spoil the ending, we kind of spoiled the ending of the whole show, but it's a very good movie, and it kind of ties in a bunch of like the gospel stories in little vignettes throughout Jesus's journey, as he's arrested and tortured and put to death. Sorry for the spoiler. But yeah, it's a really good movie, and I think if you're kind of not into like blood and stuff, like maybe just read the book on this one. But I think it's a very powerful and artistic movie.
Well, guys, it's a time today to say goodbye, but before I leave, I want to leave you with a little message. Just because it's Easter doesn't mean that you should gather with your 15 family members, okay? Try to keep it to a minimum, especially people from your household. Try to keep a minimum because a lot of people have been vaccinated, but a lot of people haven't been yet. So let's wait a little bit, hold on a little bit tight. We're almost there, and soon we're gonna be able to hug everybody and enjoy your lives, okay? And today we don't have a funny video, but we had a little message that Daniel prepared for us. So you stick to the end so you can take a look on it.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for that recommendation. Also, don't forget to send us your opinion. Also, send us topics that you would like to discuss. And we'll see you next time on the Student Lounge.